Let's explore problem 22-2A, which is a flexible budgeting and variance analysis problem. I'll read it to you. Scandia Coat Company makes women's and men's coats. Both products require filler and lining material. The following planned information has been made available. Okay, so what you see on the screen is that filler has a standard quantity of 2.5 pounds, 4 pounds for men's coats at a standard price per unit of $1.25, and the unit is pounds, right? Liner 6 yards and 8.5 yards at $6.50 per yard. Standard labor time is a half an hour and 45 minutes, right? 45. Oh, I'm sorry. That would be 0.45 of an hour. So that would be 0.3, 20 minutes, and then this is, something less than 30 minutes. That's in hundredths of an hour, not minutes. My mistake. Planned production, 4,500 units, 5,000 units, and the standard labor rate is $13.40 to make the women's coats and $14.80 to make the men's coats. Okay, they don't expect there to be any beginning or ending inventories of filler and line material, and at the end of the budget year, they see that they had 4,300 units of women's coats that were made and 5,500 of men's coats. Looking at records, we're able to determine that the actual price they paid per unit was $1.15 per pound for the budget year, and the actual quantity was 31,950 purchased and used. The liner was $6.80 per yard, and the quantity used was 72,050. All right, actual labor rate $13.25 and $15 an hour, and the actual labor used was $1,300 and $24.25. Again, the expected beginning inventory and desired inventory was realized. So the first thing we need to do, and I'll slide up here a little bit, is prepare the following variance analysis. I'm reading right here, based on the actual results in production at the end of the budget year. So we want to work on the direct material price, quantity, and total variance, and then direct labor time. And so we're doing material and labor variances. Okay? So let's take a look at that problem now. Alright, so I've got a template on the screen that we can take a look at, and we just need to fill in the information that we know. The price is given to us in pounds, I believe, right? Let me jump back. The price per pound is $1.25 for the filler, and or actual price was actually $1.15 for filler and $6.80 for liner. So the filler is $1.15. The liner was $6.80, right? We just jot those in. The standard price, though, was $1.25 and $6.50. And that information came from right there, to the left of my mouse. Alright? So the variance in this template gives us this little helpful hint. It says enter this is a negative. And the reason it's negative is the actual price was higher than the standard price. So I'm going to say equals $1.25 minus the $1.50. And you can look up here and see how I'm putting the formula in, or you can read it here. So I've got 25 cents. I can copy that here, and I should get the same thing, 30 cents. Actual. Let me keep working on this here. Oh, a little mistake here. This message says enter a negative, and I think what they mean is negative is a positive variance, because this needs to be $1.15. I've made a key punch entry. So I've got a 10 cents here, but that's actually favorable. So I want to change that formula. Equal 115 minus 125. My favorable variance we're going to show is negative, which is credits. And as long as you can follow this, it's really not that critical. And then this is, I've got to change this formula here, because in this case we've got an unfavorable variance, which will show as a positive number. And again, I've seen that done both ways, because the actual price was higher than the standard price. All right, the actual quantity was 31,950 and 72,050, and that came from right here. Let me slide back. 31,950, 72,050. Okay, so my direct material variance, I just multiply is $3,195, and over here this becomes, I want to just copy it over like that, $21,615. Alright, I increased the size of the screen a little bit. I think that'll be easier for you guys. Well, what does that mean? I was 10,000 favorable, so I've got a total direct material price variance of 3,195, and that's favorable. We're using negatives to be favorable. This is a positive number, so it's unfavorable with the way they want us to present this. And the total, we would find the difference, which is 21,615 unfavorable minus 3,109 favorable, or 20. I'm sorry, I must have done that incorrectly. To find the total material price. Since we're using negatives and positive, we don't find the difference, we simply add them together. So I'll add a negative number to a positive number, and the net effect is 8,420 unfavorable, and that's because our positive number, which represents unfavorable variance, exceeds our negative number. Okay, then to tackle the quantity variance, we know that the actual quantity was the 31,000 given there, and the actual quantity here is the 72,050. The standard quantity used was, let me go over here, they don't give that to us directly, so we need to calculate that. Okay, to find the standard quantity used, and I've worked it off to the side, but you can see it here, we have to take the 2.5 pounds of women's coats times the 4,300 actual coats produced and add to it 4 pounds times the 5,500 of men's coats, and you get that value that you see right here. So when we look back at our problem, we know that the standard quantity for filler, hang on one second here, is going to be 32,750. Next, let's tackle the standard quantity for the liner. Alright, so to find the standard quantity allowed for the production we had, we know that the filler takes 6 pounds, and we made 4,300, so 6 pounds times 4,300 gives me the quantity. You can see it, right here in this section here. Oh, and now I typed over it and lost it, so just look above my mouse here. That gives us the standard quantity to make the women's coats, and then we have 8.5 liner yards, or yards to make a coat, using liner material times 5,500 of material. So I've got that formula right there that needs to be dropped into here. Okay, oh, and again it's going to cause me a little bit of harm, but here I'll put it in there for you. Okay, so 6 times 4,300 plus 8.5 times 5,500 gives us the standard quantity used for filler and liner. So here I've got standard, I'm going to go equal the standard, I'm actually going to go equal the actual quantity less the standard, and that's negative, so that's favorable, right? We're showing favorables, favorable items in braces. Copy it over here. I'm 500 favorable here. What's the standard price? Well, that was already given right there, and I can just copy that into here. I'm just pulling from above, right? And now I can do the multiplication, equal the 800 times the value right there, and I've got 1,000 favorable. Braces means favorable because we had we actually used less quantity than what was called for this given level of production for filler, and for liner the same result. So we've got another favorable. In this case we just add across. I'll just copy down from here. We get 4,250 favorable. Now we add these two cells, and what do we have? 14,170 unfavorable. So what we see is the unfavorable amount we had in direct materials offset the favorable efficiency variance or quantity variances. Those terms are used interchangeably. And next we will look at the total direct material cost variance. So what we would do is take the actual cost, which is the, what was it, 36. Let me explain where we get that from. Hang on, everybody. Alright, back at looking at the data that's provided, the actual quantity, the cost of the actual quantity purchased and used would be equal to the 31,950 pounds of filler at $1.15. So if we multiply that across, we come up with whatever that answer should be. I've got it right here. I'm just going to copy it. Okay, and we go over there, and that becomes 36,742. So 31,950 times 115. Okay, and you see it right there. Then I'll hit enter. You see it's 36,742. Now we come over here and we say, what's the actual cost of liner? 72,050 times 680. So I'll copy that here, and we jot that in here. We get 489,940. The standard cost we need to calculate next. Okay, to find the standard cost, we've got to consider two parts, and I put it in parentheses here for you to see. We made 4,300 women's coats. The filler takes 2.5 pounds per coat, so 4,300 times 2.5 gives us the total pounds, and then we multiply it times $1.25, which is the standard price per pound. Then we've got to do the same thing for men's coats. So 5,500, that's the 5,500 right there, times 4 pounds per coat times $1.25. And if we were to add that together, I'm going to copy that here, we can jot that into our first number, which is 40,937.50. Okay? So there's the formula I've just jotted down. We need to do the same thing for the liner now. Okay, so for the liner, again, 4,300 actual production times 6, that's yards of liner, times 650 per yard. Then we add 5,500 actual quantity of coats made at 8.5 yards per coat. So 5,500 times 8.5 gives us the total yards required to make a men's coat times the 650 price. Alright, so once I've got that, I'm going to copy all of that. We can jot that value in right here, and we get 471,575. So now we know the total actual cost, the total standard cost. We do our little math again. Standard minus the actual cost will give us a negative number that would be favorable. Or I'm sorry, I went the wrong way. Actual is less. Let me do that again. So we take actual cost minus standard cost, and we get a negative number which represents a favorable variance. And then I can copy this over here. And here actual exceeded the standard cost, so it's a positive number, and we're showing that as an unfavorable variance. And again, we just copy. And if our number is positive, it's unfavorable. If it's negative, oh, I'm sorry, I copied the wrong cell. I want to copy this one here. And I've got 14,170. It's a positive number, which means it's unfavorable, which we'd expect because we've got 18.3 thousand of an unfavorable variance for liner and total materials, and 4,195 favorable. The net of that too is unfavorable.